Something came out of the fin for Grendel's arm, and whatever it was that came took Unferth too. And killed him? Asked Wulfgar eagerly. He deserved it. Perhaps, says Beowulf. With Theo sighing, distressed from so much horror. What do you think it was? The creature? Grendel? Beowulf shook his head. Grendel had no might left. I broke more than his arm. He's surely dead. Then who? Demanded the king. I don't know this country, said Beowulf. Perhaps you can tell me of other monsters who are known to haunt the fen. Something that moves in a twisty way like a snake and leaves a trail that smells as sweet as mother's milk. Wolfgard frowned and confessed himself at his wits' end. Something sly and noisy, prompt Beowulf. Something more terrible than Grendel. With Theo caught her breath. She had remembered the stories of her childhood, the most loathly and ancient horror her nurse had ever frightened her with. Beowulf looked at her keenly. Yes, he said. There's only one thing it can be, said Will Thurl. She has no name. Perhaps she is too horrible for people to want to name her. Just so, said Will Thurl. She is Grendel's mother. He had promised Hrothgar that he would not sleep until he had found Grendel's mother and rid Hall Harriot of the threat of her. Withel's last words had been, "Take care. She was the wife of Cain. She is 10 times more terrible than her son." Beowulf pulled his horse to a stop. He stood beside a black rock that overhung the waters of a pool. The pool had dark veins of blood in it. Beowulf stared at the water. The blood was boiling in it, hissing like snakes. He guessed this must have been Grendel's blood. The monster had plunged bleeding into a pool and drowned. And Unferth's head, as well as the trail, told him that Grendel's mother was down there. So he said, "Wait here for me for 2 days and 2 nights. If I do not come back to you before the time is past, then I shall be dead and lost forever. And do not risk your lives in coming to look for me." His men promised that they would do as he said. None of them thought he would ever see Beowulf again. Their faces were strained and fearful, but Beowulf laughed before plunging headlong into the pool. As Beowulf plunged, he felt strong tentacles wrap around his wrists. He managed to swing at the tentacles that gripped him. The blade bounced off. Her skin so tight and scaly, he threw the sword away. It clattered against the wall. He could hear her laughter, soft, malevolent, bloodthirsty. He tried to get a grip of the rock floor, dragged his heels, digging with his toes, anything, but it was no good, no use. Beowulf screamed with fright, and the scream saved him. It brought him to his senses. It reminded him what he must do if he was not to be destroyed. He stopped shaking. He ceased his struggling. He let himself go dead in her clammy grasp. Grendel's mother still dragged him down, but more slowly now. Much more slowly. Her arms were losing power over him. She could feel her magic going. Beowulf said, "There is a power you are powerless against. That power is in me. You think you hold me, she evil, but the truth, I hold you." So saying, he wound his fingers firmly around one of the tentacles that gripped him. He felt the creature shudder, as though suddenly touched by fire. Gently, carefully, with a stroking that softness that was nearly pity, Beowulf put his hands around her neck and strangled her. she did not fight. The tentacles were loose. They fell to the floor like useless ropes. Her body was melting, and she was dead. High above, the red and black waters boiled and bubbled. Rain poured from the shoaly sky. Beowulf men stood pacing around the pool. One Geat said, "No one could live in that. It's scalding hot." "So much blood," said another. "The she monster has torn our lord in pieces." They could not look at each other. "He must be dead, dead." "Yes, he must be dead." Just then a loud shout. Beowulf burst through the fairy scum at the pool's top. He held Grendel's head up high. His men were too astonished to raise a chair. Some fell to their knees and offered thanks to God, but they cheered enough when they had helped the weary Beowulf from the water. The fen rang with their shouts of joy, and the rain stopped, and the sun came out. It took 4 men to bear Grendel's head down to the Heorot. They stuck their long spears in from different angles and carried it between them. Beowulf rode directly behind. Everybody sang. Hrothgar and the Queen Witherlo saw the happy triumphal procession afar off and came galloping to greet it. They both wept with joy when Beowulf told them all that had happened. The queen touched his head. "Beowulf," she said, "you are worthy of your great adventure." And the king agreed wholeheartedly. He stretched out his arms, pointed to the Heorot, its golden roots intact and sparkling in the sun. "Every man that lives or will live in time to come in this land of Danes will honor and praise your name, O Beowulf. Thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart."